All right. Good afternoon, my sisters. It is so wonderful to see your beautiful, smiling faces. How y'all doing?
We
Excellent.
great. It's good to be back in the saddle.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
yes, yes. So today we're going to do a quick chat about the school to prison pipeline, a topic that we don't want to talk a lot about, but it's real and it needs to be addressed. So, what is the school to prison pipeline? What dictates the track and what are the stimuli? May I first start out by saying the track is the systematic racism, and our young people are tracked as early as third grade.
Yeah. And so, and that's kind of it in a nutshell. And the next part would be, what does that look like? When we said our children are being tracked, how so? And if so, what are we doing as parents to circumvent that? Research, like she said, shows definitely that by the third grade. So in the third grade, what started happening? Our kids start losing focus, that school no longer becomes relevant for them. Outside forces begin to trickle in and influence their decision making.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
glad you said that about the outside forces, because that's probably maybe around the time where peers and the opinion of peers become very important to them. And it's also the time when you're talking about reading and writing, literacy, that becomes a problem. It becomes very apparent that this third grader has academic issues around that time.
But let us get that the caboose that pushes that train, like you said, is racism. You know, and now thanks to the Black Lives Matter movement and all the other movements that have surfaced, that now focus can be brought more to the table as to what are these signs? How do we know? How do we identify this racism? You know, we came here as slaves, slavery began the process, Jim Crow stepped in, racism now has the forefront. Yep.
And yes, you are absolutely right. And it seems to change a bit.
Yeah.
Every generation.
Crow, about Jim Crow, right?
Different.
So, right. So in a nutshell, so as parents, to circumvent my child falling into that trap, which we're going to tap into, right? Michelle,
yes.
Some of the stimuli or some of the descriptors that frames this possibility of tracking this school to prison pipeline and what we as parents can do to say no.
Okay, so the first subtopic on our list here is illiteracy. Now, I teach reading and composition in city colleges. And it is very common for me to get several students every semester who don't even know how to write a sentence. And they're taking a college class. Now, my first question is, how did a parent allow their child, because at some point my students were, they still are, but they were somebody's actual child. Somebody was responsible for them. This person was touched by 13 teachers, K through 12th grade. They had a parent. Why didn't those people, those adults in their lives, ensure that that person knew how to read? And it baffles me, it baffles me a lot. So what are the things that we can do to make sure that our young people are not illiterate? First, parents, you got to be involved. As a parent, I tried to be involved. As busy as I was trying to make a living to feed my children, I still had to be involved. And you can be involved in small ways. One thing that I did was when in every bedroom, my child had a bed, a dresser, and the bookshelf.
The book or desk.
The
someone-
bookshelf and the desk where they can do their homework. But the bookshelf was it was more, to me, more important than the dresser. And I made sure that those books on that child's bookshelf were one chosen by them, and we rotated their books every so often. We would give the books away that they outgrew. We would make sure that they went to the bookstore and they bought a book or two every time we went to visit. They had library cards, but that bookshelf was very, very important. And because I have found as an educator, I'm going back and forth from parent to educator. As an educator, I have seen with my own eyes where young people, high school students, would go and take the SAT and ACT and score off the charts, not because they knew so much about everything on that test, but because they were avid readers. They loved reading. They read everything. And because they loved to read, they had a good understanding of a lot of topics and a good grasp of vocabulary. So reading, making sure your child knows how to read and has books to read is really, really important.
Well, let's go back to before that. As a parent, when you have a child, you have to have conversations with your children. We are the first teachers of language.
Mhm.
I don't want to get into that dispute and argument about baby talk, but I spoke to my children the way that I wanted them to speak outside of the household,
Yes.
you know, because they needed to learn clear diction.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They needed to learn the proper wording.
Yes.
They needed to understand the relationship of vocabulary with action.
Yes.
So, you know, when you're having conversations with your children, you're increasing their vocabulary understanding, comprehension of a word, how to use the word properly,
Yeah.
when to use the word properly.
Yes.
And we know in our community, as they want to say, you know, we have our in-house language and our out-house language.
Code switch.
Because we have to wear two hats.
Yes. We have to teach them how to code switch.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
we have to teach that. That's a very necessary lesson.
Yeah.
And what it does too, let's not, critical thinking skills is at the forefront with that strategy. And so we're helping our kids at an earlier age, even to problem solve with better intent, you know? So
Mhm.
that segues us right into the idea of the lack of structure in our homes. How much structure do we have as parents in our home? And what does that structure look like? You know,
Mhm.
Michelle was just saying for her, she made sure she had a desk, a bed, a bookshelf. There was certain, she set a structure that was centered around the whole idea of the love of education, the importance of education. And so that should be one of the centerpieces in our homes with our children. And not just for while they're in school, but from the womb. You know that your baby is coming, you should set a spot, and this becomes your place of refuge and becomes your place to disseminate information, to take it in, pass it on to your baby while in utero. And when that baby comes out, you keep the process going. And so with that, that begins to establish structure. One of the things clearly that leads to that pipeline is the lack of structure. That means teaching our children boundaries, training them on and teaching them filters.
Yes.
When we in the fields, did we not know how to filter? Did we not know where the boundaries were? Because in that we learned safety rules, safety nets. And see, we need parents, we got to get back to that. That contributes to that pipeline phenomenon.
And that structure also has to be supervised.
Oh, definitely.
And what I mean by that is one way that I supervise that structure that I created in my home was I would read with them. We would all sit down. I remember having everybody shut down and read for an hour every day. And when they read for their hour, I read too, because I wanted to show them an example. I want to be the example. So there are books in my home. As you see behind me, I have bookshelves. I've got 5 bookshelves. And when I go and visit my children in their homes, they have books now. So books, reading, and supervising that structure that Aquila talked about, that's very important. And so what are some of the ways that we can encourage parents to create a structure for their children and to supervise that structure?
Yeah. That's
What are some things that we can tell them?
One thing that I remember having raised my children and others, I remember one day we were outside cleaning up the yard, the alley and everything, because our house was on the alley, right there on the corner. So I get all the children out there and we clean up. And there was this little old lady to come up to me and she said, you're doing the right thing. And I said, well, what was that? She said, you're a young mother, you got these children. And she said, it's good to see that you're not just telling them what to do, but you're out here with them, modeling for them, and then there to oversee and make sure that they stay on track. And that's the one thing that we don't do as parents. We do not backtrack and supervise and watch our children. We tell them what to do and then we go do something else and expect them to do that.
Right.
We gotta, to me, that's a supervision.
Yeah.
And the other portion to that is you said modeling. So, you have to not only model for your children, but sometimes we need to model for other parents,
True.
because that's not necessarily their vision of having a book or 5 bookshelves, 1 bookshelf. You need to let them know you can just take a small corner.
Just one corner. That's all you
need.
need.
If you can take, if you can create a 3-shelf bookshelf, by using milk crates, or something else that's
actually how it started. It started with milk crates.
Yeah,
and you let each child have their own crate, so they can create their own bookshelf. You get the child involved with the parent.
Yeah, I like that.
And the parent has to model, say, well, in your bedroom, you just take a little corner and you add some books.
That's a great idea. If everybody has a crate.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
That's an excellent idea. You can fit 15, 20 books in a crate.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And so it comes back down to, like you say, supervision. And the vision starts with the parent. It starts with us, from the thought of conception through conception all the way through. It starts with us. And as parents, we have to understand that because we send them off in preschool now, we're sending them off as early as 6 months and on, doing what we got to do. But we must not forget that that we still, the ball is still in our court. And so it's the vision that we see that we've created and put around our children that's going to set the tone for who they are in any educational situation or center.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And our time is almost up. So I read a couple of studies actually, and many studies says that how well a 7-year-old reads predicts their income 35 years later.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that.
And so then with that statement, that has been stated and paraphrased in several studies. How important is it for young people to be literate? How important is that? And again, we know that we see evidence of this school to prison pipeline in third grade. So what are some of the things that happened before third grade?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, understand too, one of our biggest culprits, our friend, and at the same time, perhaps our enemy, has been technology. We have taken technology and it has become, or they say artificial insemination or intelligence has become the forefront of the modeling, the coaching and the training of our children. You know, and that's in the homes, in the schools, on the streets, in the stores. And somehow or another, we have to, again, strike a balance. We've lost a sense of balance with the whole idea of the whole technology and how it fits into our homes and with our the upbringing of our children.
And to help resolve that and combat that, it's not that difficult. You know, I've seen young mothers, especially these days, where all of their kids had their own iPad, and those iPads are given to them, you know, at any moment, and they use them for hours at a time. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a good thing that they do know how to use this technology, because it's a great thing, because technology is not going to go away.
It's here.
It's only going to get bigger and better. So they need to know how to use it so that they can be, you know, that they, when they get to the age of needing a job, needing to go to college, they'll be able to manage that. But how do we supervise the use of technology?
How do we supervise it in the homes? You know,
how do we do that?
Acculturation. How do
Well,
we?
You set a schedule. You set a time limit. You know, we know that your child is going to use these devices maybe 5 days. For some kids, it's 7 days a week. But how much time are you allowing them on these devices?
Okay.
You know, that has to be scheduled also. You know, you don't want several hours of this interaction for your child where they're not interacting with you or anyone else. You know, they're just locked into this device.
And you know what I tell mine?
You have to understand that these devices are also permeating their language skills.
They are.
You know, we
they're
go to
visual.
music when it comes to, you know, when we go to that, because now the vocabulary that our children have is based off what they see
and hear
on videos and movies, and how their quote unquote music person language is.
Yeah. And they validate that.
You know, and
they validate it.
Yeah. You know, I know of a person who has their own daycare home, and she said she has a parent that insists that when the other children are napping, you know, all preschoolers have nap time, but that parent insists that her child is given his iPad and instead of napping, so that when she gets him at 6 o'clock in the evening, he's tired and goes right to sleep.
Okay.
And she insists on that.
Well, that speaks right back to her visual of her child. And that's kind of what we're asking in a nutshell, that parents have to take on that kind of leadership role with their children. So with that in mind, we would ask for balance. Like my grandchildren, they get to watch some of the stuff they watch. I monitor that. But I tell them for every 20 minutes or every hour you put there, you're going to put double that in your books.
Yeah.
I make sure that they do that. So it's to create a balance, because if not, it'll be an all day thing. We didn't even consider what it does to the eyes.
Yeah.
how it impacts your vision. And can you imagine if that's all they do? What's going on?
And the other problem I had with that, if this parent wants her child to be ready to go to sleep for the night when she picks him up, then that means that he's not getting interaction with her.
Right.
He's not spending any
Right.
time with her.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Nor is he getting the necessary nourishment,
Yeah.
you know,
Or-
because at daycare, he's consumed what, 2 meals and
Yeah.
maybe 2 snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
So
just her reinforcing what he learned in school. Because the parent, I mean, that's for us as parents. Our children come home, we should be asking, what did you learn in school? Even the little ones. Even the
Yeah,
little
and
people, what you do in
I
school
think
today.
we have 2 minutes left. I think we should go back to what Jamila just brought up. If this child is going home and going right to sleep, what about his physical
Nutrition.
food, his physical nourishment?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening with that at dinner time?
Right. Right.
Which probably means she stops maybe and get a McDonald's, a Happy Meal or something on the way,
Can I
is what I'm
segue?
guessing.
Can I segue into that to keep us present? That's another example of what leads or what helps to cultivate or grow this prison to pipeline phenomena. You know, one, when our kids come, they're undernourished, they're tired, they're this, so there's no way they can perform academically. Okay,
Yeah.
now you become a problem in the classroom, and so now we're dealing with punitive or restorative practices now. So it's
Yeah.
that's what starts the whole phenomena, I think, for on that vein as parents.
Yeah, because she needs to feed him a good meal, a hearty meal, but with some actual vegetables and nutrition his body needs. She needs to read him a story. She needs to talk to him. She needs to ask him how his day went, you know, before he goes to sleep for the night. Otherwise, he's gonna get up in the morning. Is she fixing him breakfast? Probably not, because he gets it at school.
Right.
And then does she ever talk to him? No, probably not, because they're getting dressed, going to the car and going to school and doing the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So there's no structure. Her structure is dysfunctional, and her supervision is dysfunctional. And it seems like she doesn't really have a vision for her child.
Yeah. So we're going to pick this up again next week.
Yes.
Carol?
Yes, we'll pick it up there next week.
all right.
And